curves together. So whenever we're talking about market equilibrium, we're looking at the price adjustment process. So now that we understand how supply works and how demand works on their own, how do we get the price of a product? So that's going to be the focus of today. So in a competitive market like what we have in the United States, generally the price of any good or service will move towards equilibrium. What we mean by equilibrium is when prices are stable and when the quantity of goods or services supplied, aka our supply curve here, when that is equal to the quantity demanded, so our demand curve as shown here. So whenever you're looking at supply and demand graphed together for whatever service, for whatever product it might be, that point of which they intersect, as you can see right here, this is the price, aka this is where we find our market equilibrium. So you can see here with our supply curve, the point at which the price will be found for whatever that good or product or service is, that will always be at the point in which the supply and demand curves intersect with each other, where they meet, where this orange dot is. So a couple of other things to know with the equilibrium or the price adjustment process are the ideas of a surplus and a shortage. Some of you have probably heard of these before, so this might be a little bit of a review. But for those of you that don't know what a surplus is, this is when quantity supplied of any good is greater than the quantity that is demanded. So there's essentially unsold product that's just sitting on shelves somewhere, sitting in a warehouse. So people aren't really looking to buy this product. Companies may have supplied or created a lot of them, but there isn't a demand for them. Now, in some instances, this may be because the price is too high. So, in an effort to make sure that these products get sold, oftentimes suppliers or producers will be willing to decrease the price because they want to make some sort of profit, even if it was less than their original price. So generally in a surplus, in order to get rid of this unsold product or to sell this unsold product, suppliers or producers will generally decrease the price of these products in order to get them off the shelves. Now, in the opposite scenario, we find what's known as a shortage. This is when the quantity demanded is greater than the quantity that's supplied. So there isn't enough product. This is when people are demanding a lot, it's selling out quickly, and suppliers or producers are not able to keep up with the demand. Now, we see this actually going on today. Think of all the hand sanitizer people are trying to buy, all of the Clorox wipes, all of the different masks, in some instances gloves. So that's an example of a shortage. People are demanding it, and it's greater than oftentimes producers can keep up with. Now, in a shortage, at some point, both the price of those products as well as the quantity supplied will eventually increase in order to keep up with the large amount of demand that these products are seeing. Looking now at surplus and shortage actually in graphing form. So we know what a surplus is and we know what a shortage is, but what does it look like if we were to graph the supply curve and the demand curve together? So starting with a surplus up here at the top. Again, on our y-axis, we will always find price, and on the x-axis, we will always find quantity. Even when we are graphing these two together, the axes will not change at all. So, as we see here, remember, a surplus is when there is more supply and less demand. So there's unsold product, people aren't buying it, people aren't demanding it. And that is shown here through this orange triangle. As you can see, the supply that's available, if we look at this green dot here, if we were to follow this level of supply down here, this is the quantity that is actually being supplied right now. So if we label that as QS, but the actual quantity demanded at this price point, right here, the quantity demanded at that price point is actually much lower than the quantity that is supplied. So again, when your demand is lower than the quantity that is actually supplied, this is when you're going to find a surplus, like what we see here. And remember, within a surplus, at some point, these producers will start to lower their prices, so then they can eventually get to this equilibrium, this part where the supply and the demand curves meet each other. And then you can see the opposite down here with a shortage. Again, price on the y-axis, quantity on the x-axis. Here's our supply curve, here's our demand curve. But in this instance, if we look on the demand curve here, the quantity demanded is right here. So if we label that as QD of the quantity that's currently demanded, compared to the actual supply of that product, the quantity supplied. Okay, I won't put an S there just for time's sake, but you can see here that the quantity demanded is higher than the quantity that is being supplied. So this is a shortage, right? When there's more demand but not enough supply, we will find a shortage of a product. So eventually, in order to reach this equilibrium where the supply is equal to the quantity that's demanded, producers will eventually start to produce more, and then when they start to produce more of that good, the price will increase from this original price level up to the new equilibrium price, which again is always found at the point in which the supply and the demand curves intersect with each other.